We're grateful to have Shay Swerver and Gregory Vincent Clegg with us this afternoon to talk about their project in Pennsylvania. And I also want to invite everybody to use the chat for questions, but also at the end of the presentation, there'll be time for you to unmute and ask your questions to the presenters directly. There are longer bios written up on our Hickson website, and Matt will share the link to that so that you can all read more about Shay and Gregory. But Shay is the founder of the Correctional Conservation Collaboration, and Gregory is a tree climber. And without further ado, I will pass the mic to them.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks everyone for joining. First, I'll acknowledge that I come to you from the traditional land of the Susquehannock people and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. First, I want to open up with a quote that Wes Moore shared on a Super Soul Sunday conversation with Oprah Winfrey. Wes Moore is also the author of the book called The Work. But he said in that conversation, even our worst decisions don't separate us from the circle of humanity. If we aren't willing to understand the lives of those incarcerated, then we are doomed to keep on repeating the tragedy of lives, the ones those in prison lead. So with that, I'll be talking to you today about the Correctional Conservation Collaborative. When we came to this name a few years ago, it was kind of a tribute to the original CCC, or Civilian Conservation Corps. The program's foundational partners or collaborators are the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, which I am an employee of, and the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. And then, as many of you are probably aware, many programs as this one can't be what they are today without all the partnerships and collaborations. So this is just a list of the various organizations we partner with to help bring this program to fruition. And a lot of these organizations have people employed that come to be the instructors for the Correctional Conservation Collaborative. So what is the CCC in a nutshell? It is a natural resources and conservation job training program that provides employable skills to inmates nearing release in arboriculture, forestry, and natural resource related fields. So here's an outline of what I'll go over today. I'll start with kind of the drivers and impetus that help support the launch of this program and also help support the continuation of it today. And then I'll share more about the program, and we'll have Greg Clegg, who I'm honored to be presenting here with today, talk about his experience in the program and what he's doing today. And then lastly, and very briefly, just touch on the challenges the program has, lessons learned, and some exciting future outlook. So I don't have to spend too long on these slides because you're probably all familiar, with that the high cost of incarceration. Correction departments are committed to reducing recidivism and offering vocational program despite, budgets being cut. Pennsylvania, you can see here, they categorize 81% of their population as being unskilled or possessing no skills. And then in recent times, we have more individuals being released early for preventative COVID measures. And then on the right-hand side is a graph the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections has published, although it's a little dated from 2008 releases. It just reiterates the high rates of recidivism within, from 5 months to 19 months there. Similarly, something that's not new to you is that correctional education programs and vocational training programs in correctional settings help reduce recidivism and increase obtainment of post-release employment. So here's a briefing, I think it was from 2013 from RAND Corporation and VGA on just, those substantial increases, the 43% lower odds of recidivating and then 28% higher odds of finding post-release employment, and then compound that with the findings of green prison programs. So on the right-hand slide is a graph from Rikers Island Green Prison Program that think it was, yeah, the source there's Dr. Van der Linden from 2015 just found that those, even the green focused programs can especially even increase or decrease recidivism more. So a second driver for this program is an administrative one. On the left is Pennsylvania's Governor Wolf, who in 2015 tasked a DCNR with the above question: how do we grow more good jobs while conserving and improving our forests? And our great, secretary, Cindy Dunn of Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, is always thinking collaboratively, pulled a group of experts together to help answer that question. And in 2016, the Green Ribbon Task Force was created. They published a Woods That Work report, and in it they laid out job objectives, and two are listed there: broaden recruitment efforts to attract people into forestry careers and develop more pipelines between industry and institutions. And then scale out a little bit to the national level right now, and you have, agency around employing droves of people that have been impacted by COVID. You have in the Biden's executive order, which was published late January, it mentions creating a modern day civilian conservation corps, known as the Civilian Climate Corps. And then you have many news outlets picking up on this. So here's just a few. The third leg of the stool, and probably the most important, is the industry demand. So in May of 2018, the tree care industry held a workforce summit where they, pulled together people from academia, industry, private sector, public sector, and they talked about key challenges specifically in the tree care industry. And the bullets are those key challenges that they discovered. And then just as of last month, Sarah Anderson, who's an outstanding person, and she's the director of career pathways in American Forests, just reiterated, the need for the jobs, just the labor shortage and the projected growth in the tree care industry. This is from Department of Labor through their ONET online platform, and then Bureau of Labor Statistics, for showing just a fruitful future for tree trimmers and tree pruners, which is what they classify, I think, arborists within. So it's an industry that doesn't require, high education attainment. You can earn family sustaining wages, and you can see on the right-hand side is a kind of an employment concentration of where there are a lot of jobs. And Pennsylvania has a high employment rate for tree trimmers and tree pruners, which helped make the case for this pilot program. There's also, let me go back a slide here. Okay, so the industry also is a career pathway. People can begin in entry-level positions as ground operations, and then with more experience can become foremen or forewomen and work in sales. And then the current workforce is kind of aging out, and it's not diverse. It's mostly white and male. So from a Urban Forestry 2020 research project, they found this from 524 respondents. So you can read that there. And just to drive this point, this is a demographic breakdown of the tree care workers in Detroit, Michigan, mostly male, mostly white. And it's hard to really, we can't talk about, creating jobs in urban forestry and urban forestry in general without acknowledging that underserved and under-resourced communities have fewer trees, and that these communities with the highest tree canopy needs also tend to have the highest unemployment rates. In American forests, specifically, Sarah Anderson's also leading the charge on tree equity, which is helping address the labor shortage in urban forestry, while also engaging and retaining those living in low canopy areas who tend to be low income and people of color. And then the last driver and kind of major objective of this program for me personally is that, there's more and more research that's showing the restorative properties of nature, not just time in nature, but from this study, you can see just images being projected on the walls of correctional settings. And this was a clinical psychotherapist, Patricia Hosbach. She did a study at Snake Correctional Institution in Oregon. So that's from 2016, if you want to read that. Here's program objectives of the Correctional Conservation Collaborative: creating career pathways, helping reduce recidivism, creating a workforce pipeline for the natural resource conservation field, increasing exposure to nature, and hopefully providing some of those restorative properties that nature offers, and indirectly, maybe rehabilitating promoting interdepartmental and cross-sector collaboration. Here's a milestone of the last 3 years. So the first program we piloted in 2017, and we ran it as just an arborist short course, which I'll explain a little bit more. And then over the years, we've expanded to do one-day trainings, multi-week trainings. We've incorporated other subject areas. And also I've mentioned in there, where some big events are that we were able to share this program with others, which reminds me I have to put this event in here because I'm very excited to be connecting with you all and sharing this. And then you can see the last milestone is we're working with the U.S. Forest Service to write a technical report that highlights this program and very similar programs across the country. There's about 5 that we're doing in-depth case studies on, so that will hopefully be published in the coming year or two. So we built the arborist short course off an existing model. We work really closely with Penn State Extension to carry out our urban forestry program across the state. And they had an arborist short course that existed that they offered to the public. And we just kind of bolstered that program with different technical resources that the Tree Care Industry Association, TCIA, and also ISA, which stands for the International Society of Arboriculture. They have a lot of great educational and technical resources. So again, we just incorporated some other subject areas to bolster that existing short course. So all the bullets you see there are topics that we taught on at the arborist short course. And we have, Greg's gonna talk about, he went through the program, and since he's went through it, we have incorporated other classes, which I'll get to as well. So all the instructors, every class was taught, we tried to recruit a different speaker for each subject, and they all participate voluntarily, and they're all professionals or scholars from the field. So the next was to determine the location. I went to Department of Corrections, which is a sister agency to DCNR. So they were very helpful and receptive. And I went to their department, their central office, and they kind of, with this idea, and they handed me what's ironically called the Forestry Camp on a silver platter. And I say that because here's a picture of it, and you can see the Forestry Camp is that little circle of red. That's a picture of the Forestry Camp. So it's like a log cabin. It's nestled at the foothills of Nittany Mountain in kind of central Pennsylvania. It's surrounded by 6,000 acres. 2,400 acres is wooded. So there's 72 men that live at the forestry camp, and some are going out, on daily work detail to conduct forest management and timber harvesting already. So the landscape lends itself really well to a program, that we brought to Department of Corrections, and it just complements that hands-on skills they were already getting. And you can see across the street is a little pinpoint that says SCI Rockview. That's the maximum security facility across the street. So the forestry camp, they have a firewood program. Like I said, they're doing timber harvesting and kind of forest management on a certain scale, and they have a 60-acre tree nursery. So so I can't take all the credit. Before this program came to the forestry camp, historically they did have some tree climbing trainings, and to some degree they're doing kind of opportunistic lessons when they can in the nursery, and they have a greenhouse. And I think just as budgets have been cut over the years, any formal education or programming are kind of sometimes the first to go. So this is how it works on the ground. You have the 2 state agencies, the CCC program coordinator, which is kind of how I'm acting in a role right now. I don't get paid as this. This was an idea I brought up. I was at the time in an urban forestry coordinator role for Pennsylvania. And about a year ago, I moved into DCNR's policy office, and I've been allowed to continue this program because it really aligns with DCNR's mission and some of our objectives, which is to help grow and diversify the natural resource and conservation workforce and help create pipelines. So this is kind of how it works on the ground. Here's some of the pictures from the class. Rich Verboncic from Bartlett Tree Experts talks about arboriculture as a career. Julian Schieffer from Penn State Extension usually comes in and does tree biology. So some of these pictures are from different years. Celine Colbert, she's a within our DCNR, we have the Bureau of Forestry, and she's a service forester. So she teaches tree identification. And what's nice is we have an area that can act as an indoor classroom. And so we might do a PowerPoint in the beginning to talk about the different, you know, I guess the terminology and vernacular, and then we'll go and take a walk and we're able to do tree identification, you know, live. And you can see sometimes it'll be a time of year we're doing the tree identification where there will be leaves on the trees, and that's very helpful. Other times we have to do ID by the bark and the buds. This is another tree identification. Celine also created laminated leaf sheets there you can see in the upper right-hand corner. And it's also great, sometimes you get to ID a lot of invasive species. So on the right, that is the invasive in Pennsylvania, autumn olive. Keisha Bronskill, she's the Delaware Urban Forestry Coordinator, and Keisha has come up a couple years to teach one class. So it's, you know, kind of a long haul, but she has taught some tree selection classes and incorporated some really fun, like hands-on games as a way of teaching that. Then we do tree climbing. We'll do hands-on tree climbing. Forestry Camp has these great large trees right on the property that are all kind of close together. So we're able to, you know, get maybe 10 people up into a large tree, mature tree at any one time. And we have Jim Savage is pictured there helping someone who probably got stranded once they got too high up. You know, it's the heights, rate of heights. That's a good way to determine if you don't want to go into the tree care industry, although you could always be a grounds person. Vinnie Catrone, teaching tree pruning. So we'll do the hands-on. Maybe we'll do a classroom portion and then go into the nursery and do some pruning from the ground, as you can see there. Pests and Diseases, again, Penn State Extension, educator Tim Abbey, you know, and there were no bugs harmed in this lesson. The praying mantis was released afterwards. And what's neat in the lower right-hand corner is, you know, we'll take walks around the grounds right outside the forestry camp. And the insects we found on a tree, it was I think that was a birch tree, but we found those, and the guys, you know, it happened to be the next day, Tim came up and was talking about pests and diseases. So they were like, oh, Tim, come tell us what these insects were, which we never figured it out. So if anyone knows, drop it in the chat. Don Coffey, he's a private business owner called Nature's Canopy, and he has done equipment checks and knot tying. And now I'm gonna hand it over to Greg Clegg, who participated in the very first Arbor Shore course. So I feel bad, Greg was like our guinea pig kind of going through this, but this is a video. If you actually just Google Gregory Clegg and like the Chesapeake Bay Alliance, this really beautiful video was done of Gregory. So Gregory, I'm sorry if you don't want people to see that, but it is a good video, and I'm going to hand it over to Greg to let him talk about his experience. Let's see. I don't hear. Gregory, I can't hear you if you're trying to speak. Okay, well, I can keep going, and then once he hops back on, we can.
Hello?
Oh, hey, Greg.
Hi, yeah.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to open it up to you to talk about your experience and what you're doing now. And then, yeah, I have a few more slides I can wrap up with at the end.
Okay. I went through the program in 2018. Overall, it was a very good experience, and it has made me very successful today. I took the tree climbing course, the short arborist course, and today I'm a tree climber and a foreman with a tree company, one of the third largest tree companies in the country. So overall, it was a good experience at the camp. They brought the program brought a spark back for, you know, tree work, because I was raised in it and lost it due to the streets, me being in the streets and you know, so when Shay brought the program in, that brought a spark back. I learned a lot. I like the fact that we had some professors come in from Penn State. There's a lot of hands-on trainings. And it's a very good experience. Today, I am a foreman. I manage like sometimes 20-some guys. Just went from nothing basically to where I'm at today. Is being really successful, and it's because of that program, I believe. I think that more programs should be incorporated within the DOCs of this nature. Because it's hard to get into programs within the DOC. Hello?
Yeah, we can still hear you. Yeah, Greg was, I think, so the first pilot we did was in the fall of 2017, and it ended like January of 2018. And Greg, I think that's when you were released, right? And then within like 2 or 3 weeks, and you went back to Virginia, but he got a job in the tree care industry, and you've I don't know how many companies have you worked with since? I think the first one was Asplund, right? And then we can't hear you now, Greg. Well, if anyone has questions, you can unmute for Greg now, or I just have a few more slides I can talk about how we've expanded the program. Greg, chime in if you if there's anything else you want to mention.
No, we can't hear Greg right now, but that was great, a great explanation of the experience. I'm really curious about like that move and like getting released and then getting the job and moving at the same time. Like that sounds like a lot at once. I would love to, if we can hear Greg again, hear how that was, or maybe Shay, if we can't hear Greg, like how do you guys facilitate folks who are re-entering?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Erica. Greg, did you hear that question, or are you still with us? Okay, if anyone sees him like, you know, highlight back up, I think it's on as Gregory's iPhone. Just stop me so we can make sure we capture. I think he's working. So I think he's still based in Virginia, and he was working in North Carolina today. So it's like, I know the reception, we tried to connect earlier and it was a little spotty. So yeah, I'll continue to the next. So the program was, there was someone from a large tree care company that reached out that oversaw like the Cleveland, Ohio, Pittsburgh, PA metro area. They wanted to, you know, replicate it. So I reached out to Tyler Stevenson, who's pictured in the lower right-hand corner. And he at the time was my counterpart, the urban forestry coordinator in Ohio. And we piloted the program at Richland's correctional facility. And there's a picture of the graduates, and there were 20 students that went through it. And since then, we've incorporated more classes. So in addition to kind of the traditional urban forestry or arboriculture topics, you know, there's also more, and I think people from Baltimore's Urban Wood Project spoke earlier in this conference. And so there's kind of more traditional forestry practices, I think, being incorporated into urban forestry for around urban wood utilization, you know, like, so I've tried to incorporate, we did a lumber grading class. It's Scott Whitaker is another Penn State extension. We rely very heavily as well on those extension educators. We did do a biochar making demonstration. Gary Gilmore, who's with the Bureau of Forestry, has since retired, and Alan Rohn there on the right, who has also since retired. They just used these 2 oil drums stacked on top of each other, and then Gary he kind of, I guess, creates holes in the bottom of the one oil drum for circulation. And you can see he had to put a layer down of dirt and stuff. And you can make a biochar that way. And they use this to supplement it as a soil amendment in their tree nursery. And they've actually, Wade, who's the manager at the Forestry Camp, I have a picture of him later, has been, you know, just keeping track of the growth on trees that have been planted with biochar versus trees without. And they're putting on, you know, they're growing at a faster rate with the biochar amendment. So we're trying to, you know, talk about scaling that biochar making up. We also incorporated chainsaw safety. Since they do a lot of timber harvesting, there's I think every state has it, because it's through the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, SFI. It's called Game of Logging. So it's a day, you know, it's a day-long training, and it's like a game. You get points by how close you know, fell a tree to a target, and so everyone tends to really love that day, and they get a certificate of, you know, completion for chainsaw safety. So Kevin Snyder, he's the only instructor for game of logging in Pennsylvania. So it's pretty hard. That's a bottleneck there. We do silviculture. Our DCNR Bureau of Forestry service foresters do this as part of their job. So Lynn Greenway is pictured there, and she was able to come out this fall. We did a training. So you can see we all had our mask and socially distanced. Also, it's a way to build capacity in local government. So real big problem in municipalities and local governments is they don't have the capacity, especially in smaller, so like your larger cities, maybe Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, you know, Austin, Texas, you know, Atlanta. They're pretty big tree programs within cities. And then also there's nonprofits that exist, but we have smaller class cities like Allentown, Reading, Pennsylvania, Johnstown, and so there's not capacity or dedicated staff to maintain those trees. So we did a day-long tree tenders training, which you may have heard of because the Pennsylvania Horticulture Society out of Philadelphia has been doing this tree tenders training program for a long time with public and neighborhood residents. And we did it with a group of the community work crews at Huntington SCI. And then we did that in the summer. And then in the winter, we went out with the Shade Tree Commission and pruned some of their street trees. And this was not that, this shot here was post shot for media. So that wasn't actually how we were pruning trees that day. So then that's the forestry side of things. And then Pennsylvania has a goal to plant 86,000 new acres of riparian forest buffer by 2025. And we're having the issue of, you know, who's going to maintain these buffers, who can plant these buffers. And there's a huge need for contractors. And to date, there's very few professionals, whether it's a landscaping company or maybe it's, you know, someone that just does land management or reforestation, but there's not that many people adding this service to their portfolio. And if you know of the background is, you know, Pennsylvania has all this agricultural land that's polluting the Chesapeake Bay. So that's where we have to plant these new buffers. And, you know, just riparian forest buffers are, you know, vegetated, I guess it's the vegetation along streams. So if you don't have that vegetation, runoff from the agricultural lands or even from impervious surfaces will just run straight into the streams or bodies of water. So my colleagues who work on riparian forest buffers approached me and said, you know, we know you're doing this program. Could we pilot something similar? Because, you know, we need more people to be doing this work. So we incorporated, our idea was that we incorporate entrepreneurship training, small business basics, and then we teach them all about riparian buffers and even how agricultural practices can impact water quality. And so at another facility, July through October 2019, we went up a couple times a week and we did a riparian forest buffer vocational training. So here's a picture. We got to go out to a lot of buffer sites that are in the county there and practice hands-on maintenance. Here's the topics we taught on. So again, we tried to recruit a different speaker for every session, every topic. And everyone was, you know, participated voluntarily. And then what was really neat is the facility actually has And Department of Corrections, at least in Pennsylvania, they have a lot of land, and some of it they lease out to farmers, or they might do agriculture on their own, you know, within their own, under their own purview. So this was land that was leased out to a farmer, and the sections highlighted along the streams there. So the blue line is a stream, and you can kind of see it in this picture on the right hand, on the left hand side. And it doesn't have a riparian buffer on it. And so this was on Huntington SCI's property. So we said this could be a perfect outdoor classroom. And so that's what we did. We did classroom-based lessons inside in the morning, and then we traveled. This was about 15 miles from the facility, and we traveled to the buffer site. And, you know, we talked about what was there. And so we only ended up we highlighted how many potential acres were there to be buffered. We only ended up doing about an acre up here in the kind of in the upper left-hand corner. And that was the culmination of our buffer planting. I think I have a picture of it. So we talked about aquatic macroinvertebrates. We had Lamont Garber from Stroud Water Research Center come out. We walked into the stream, turned over rocks, and Lamont also had those samples there. We did tree planting and demonstrations to get them used to, you know, what depth do you plant trees and how do you stake them? And we did site maintenance. This was another site we went out and visited. The gentleman holding the weed trimmer in the background there is Trevor Weaver. He's the manager of the Conservation District in Mifflin County, which is the county that facility is located in. So they have buffers. So we got to go out and do a lot of site maintenance, which, you know, they need help doing. So it was great. Here's some more site maintenance. The guys really enjoyed using, it's actually called the Little Wanderer. You can see it titled on the side of that machine there. They enjoyed this. And then the last day, we buffered that little stream. So it was about an acre, about 200 shrubs and trees. And we invited, in the upper left-hand corner there is Secretary Brandon Flood, who's the secretary of the Board of Parole and Pardons and Parole, I think is the name of the department. And then Kate is the director of Alliance for Chesapeake Bay, and a lot of people came out and got to help. And then we added on, as we did these trainings, we talked to businesses, and they said, you know, we really need people with skills with pesticide applicator experience or certification. So we incorporated that into the training. And then we also tried to do a short course, a pesticide applicator short course. And that was really, really intense. That was just sitting, you know, we just went through the book. Penn State Extension has the books on like the core material, and if you want to do, you know, your specialties of right away and or ornamental trees, depending on what category you want to focus in. And there's a lot of math, and you can see that's a picture of me, and I took the test as well, and I didn't pass it, so I'm not very good at math. And then in addition to the buffers, we have goals to convert lawn to meadows. So this is another one of our Chesapeake Bay, you know, improving water quality in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So we have to convert 10 acres of lawn by 2025. And the next slide, we received a grant, and the Chesapeake Bay landscape professionals are helping us do this grant. And this is a map analysis. This is a state correctional institution near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, called Camp Hill. And they highlighted there. I mean, you can see the black is the outline of their property, and then you can see all the lawn. And then with blue outline highlighted in green, that's potential buffer that could be, or it's a potential stream that could be buffered. So there's a lot of potential to do lawn conversion, to put trees. And it was interesting to hear the speakers earlier talk about, you know, the different view sheds and having to keep in mind security, and maybe we can't plant trees so close to the facility. So I'm still learning all those different policies and restrictions, but there is potential on state property to do these environmental projects. So this is Wade Renninger pictured there, who's the manager of the Forestry Camp facility, and then one of our ecologists, Kelly Stitch. Oops. And this is a piece of land at the Forestry Camp that they just mow. and it's about an acre. So Wade, who's always been really receptive, he's going to let us plant a meadow there coming fall of 2020, and then we're going to design a training around it. There's pre and post evaluations. We did one for the short course. We did one for the buffer training, just to start being able to evaluate, you know, if anyone was gaining knowledge over these programs, and it's all multiple choice. These are the programs we've done to date, mostly at the 2 facilities. And I'd love to, if we have time, get people's feedback about, we've only worked in 2 minimum security facilities right now because we're, one of the biggest barriers is we can't go inside the maximum security facilities to do any of this kind of programming, because it would be seen as competition with the union. You know, all of the officers and vocational instructors are unionized. This is the operating budget we've had to date. So the first year I just piloted, you know, all those instructors volunteered their time. Gregory was a success story, and that helped get some more funding from DCNR, $10,000. And we used that to bring in instructors like Don Coffey from Nature's Canopy. You know, he owns a private business, so we paid him for his time to come in and teach tree climbing and some of the more technical aspects. And then also for materials and books. And then you can see most of the funding was pulled due to COVID in the last couple of years. And we've received 2 grants, one we are going to be working on, and then the one in the middle that's with CB Trust, Chesapeake Bay Trust, and from EPA is the one that Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professionals is working on now, which is that map analysis, helping us formalize a curriculum. And then I started a Facebook page trying to just capture people once they get out of, you know, how can we communicate? How can I post jobs? So I started a Facebook page, and you can see them interact, you know, graduates of the program who then get onto our group talking about creating a rec climbing club and like the different techniques they use. It's just so cool. And then like empowering each other, and yeah, it gets me very excited. So here are some of the barriers and challenges that I faced with the program. Sustainability of the program and scaling up is probably the biggest challenge. Best practices, lessons learned, which are probably nothing new to, you know, this group, about partnerships, utilizing master gardeners or, you know, staff at your departments of natural resources because they're experts in, you know, nature and ecology and ecosystems. I'm working on getting a registered tree worker apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship in Pennsylvania. No matter what, I think it's a win-win. So a lot of these individuals do go back to work, you know, and it's great if they have jobs like in a union, like a steel worker, or if they're a mason, or a lot of them do construction, you know, because it pays really well for the entry level. And them taking this knowledge with them of like, how do you preserve trees when you're doing a construction project? And, you know, just being able to share too that how tree identification when you're out on a walk with your family. So no matter what, I think it's, yeah, a win-win. And then the last couple slides, I just want to acknowledge Tina Hicks-Kern and Wade Renninger have been the 2 local champions at the facilities. Right now it's all reactive. So although I did reach out to Wade, Wade's been really receptive in letting us do all these different programs and trying out things at the Forestry Camp. And then Tina, she worked at SCI Huntington and recently retired. So there's a gap there, having to reconnect with somebody at Huntington. And, but without them, you know, it's just me. I'm emailing different correctional institutions to, you know, keep saying, hey, we can offer this program. And I did reach out to SCI Camp Hill, which you saw in that picture of the lawn conversion potential and the buffer. And so I'm trying to, you know, slowly, I just keep, yeah, persistence is how I work. So, and then this is the last slide and all the cool things that, you know, we come across when we're doing programming, like eating pawpaws. And so yeah, I'm happy to take questions. And if Gregory is back on, we could make sure he is able to share too.
Thank you, Shay. That was an excellent presentation and such an impressive program. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you for listening.
I don't see any questions in the chat. Does anybody want to unmute and have a question for Shay?
Yeah. Or if you have feedback on the union issue.
I don't want to hog the question time, so please stop me. Anybody else who has questions? Shay, great job. I am in Boston and I want to get something like this going from my position at a nonprofit, the Emerald Necklace Conservancy, so a historic park chain where we do urban forestry, and we're trying to ramp it up, and we need a lot of help. And I think that we used to have a program that was with currently incarcerated individuals, and it actually failed. And so trying to bring that back, and your program is a much larger scale than what we can do, but it's definitely one of the closest things that I've seen to what we want to do. And so myself and my my colleague Stephen on this call, can we reach out to you is one question.
Yeah, definitely, please.
Can we get a copy of the presentation is another one. And you know, what would be almost your first and best piece of advice for someone who's new to starting a program like this?
I would reach out to, I bet Boston has a city arborist.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I do know, at least I Julie Coop is still one of the, urban forestry coordinators in Massachusetts, and I know her. So if you don't have her email, I can help introduce you or connect you. And Molly was the second one, and I think she's,
Yep.
Okay.
They're both still there, yeah. So the ANC actually has formal legal partnerships with the city of Boston, DCR, and the town of Brookline to manage the 1,000 acres that we have, or that we don't have, but we work on. And so that's great. I think they might be interested. We've been trying to kind of like put some ideas together to present to them ahead of really bringing them in. But I think you're right, urban connecting early, it might be a better strategy. And I see someone mentioning Speak for the Trees. We talked to them, we just emailed them today. So thank you, Dexter. Nice.
Yeah, and from the conversations I've had with some, doing this case study report, is that some have received, a lump sum like grant to help launch the program. But then and chime in, it sounds like if Dexter's on the phone, he's knows a lot more than I do, but that a fee for service tends to be a pretty sustainable model. So if you're going to go out, if it's a job, workforce development, and I guess so you're with a nonprofit, right, Erica? Okay. Yeah. So the nonprofit and the URIs, I don't know if Colleen's on, but the URIs, Green Skills program does this, where they have the contract with the city of New Haven, Connecticut, and do the fee for service. So that helps sustain that model.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll reach out. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Erica, I work with Colleen at URI. So if you want to reach out to me as well, I'm happy to talk with you.
Great. Thank you so much.
I don't see any other questions. Has anyone, even if there's anyone from, I don't know if the folks from Maine Department of Corrections are still on, if anybody that works in corrections that have had this union issue. But if not, I don't see Gregory on again either.
One interesting thing about the program that I mentioned that we had at this nonprofit before is that I think there may have been competition with unions from that being a 365 park maintenance thing. Yeah. So I have been hearing about this. Could you go into a little bit more what your perspective on that is?
Yeah. So it sounds like I would love to bring these programs into the maximum, security facilities, because I think those are the Forestry Camp and the other facility, they call them the mods, they have more yard time, they're getting out. They don't even, Forestry Camp doesn't even have a fence. So they can go for walks in the woods and to, a certain degree. And they have access to nature. And so I want to bring more nature into those, confined spaces and where it's devoid of nature. And so when I've approached the central office at Pennsylvania Department of Corrections about the opportunity to bring these in. It sounds like because it's vocational, well, one, it has to be, it seems like it has to, that's my impression. It has to be a vocational related, it has to have a certification or credential associated with it. And then if that were to happen, you know, it would be competing, like there are already vocational instructors, even though they're not maybe teaching on forestry or natural resource, maybe it's construction or woodworking, but it still would be competing with, because they're unionized, you know, they're in a union, those instructors. And so if people were to come in and teach, it just seems like that's my, maybe I don't understand it enough, but I've had a few conversations with our Department of Corrections about bringing it inside, like Rockview, which is I mentioned that on the map. And it's kind of seems like it's a stop, it's roadblock. I don't know if that explains it better, Tony. I saw to repeat the union issue, but I know on
question I had, I'm really sorry, I keep asking so much.
no one else is,
question I had is, I've been thinking about, there is a Conservation Corps conversation in Boston. It does seem to be really focused on labor, and I think labor is really valuable and accessible. I think that's really important. But I have been wondering, why aren't we working on, and maybe we are, why aren't we working on teaching GIS skills and some of the office management, like contracting, managing projects, maybe landscape architecture, some of these things that, you know, maybe I'm biased by the nonprofit I work for dealing with those subjects, but are those things that you guys think about?
Anyone else can chime in if they have experience. I haven't thought about that. I mean, I've thought about incorporating more lessons or topics on just increasing environmental literacy and more about environmental topics and issues in Pennsylvania, but that's a great idea, because I mean, even within DCNR, we always have a need for people with GIS skills, and that seems like something, especially if they have access to computers, something they could learn.
Absolutely.
But anyone can unmute and chime in if they incorporate that in their programs.
Hi, April. How are you?
Hi, good, thanks.
It's April from SCI Dallas with the horticulture landscaping program there.
Hi, yeah. April, you can share. April is an awesome program. Her and I connected a couple weeks ago. She's, I think, and April, correct me if I'm wrong, the only horticultural based instructor at a state correctional institution in Pennsylvania. So she has a horticulture program at SCI Dallas. So April, yeah, share. I think it seems like I still have like 10 minutes, so you should share.
Thank you. Actually, after 2016 inspections, they decided to start a second program modeled after mine at Pine Grove Prison, which is like an under 21 jail or prison. But we do currently offer certifications in landscaping and also greenhouse grower. But Shay, you had sent me that email, and I'm looking into those other certifications to try to bring them in. And I know we had talked about trying to grow some things for DCNR within our greenhouses. So I'm still hoping that that's going to be a possibility. But I am truly enjoying everything I'm hearing with this conference and all of the contact information. So I do want to give a shout out to everyone who's participating and say thank you, because this is something that I've been working on since 2007 in the prison, and I haven't had too many people to reach out to until now. So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah, April's been a complete like blessing, and I feel like a needle in a haystack, where it's like I heard about that she existed, but we only connected a few weeks ago. But she's, you know, we've had these other local champions, but April's like already doing horticulture at a facility in Pennsylvania. And she's like, yeah, April, you can speak for yourself. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but she's very like, you know, we're on the same, she's here, right, at this conference. So that should say a lot of that she's interested in these kind of topics. So I'm very excited to see where that goes. I will mention something April said about plant stock. And when we're planting these buffers and doing lawn conversion and planting trees, that's a bottleneck we're noticing for public projects is the nursery stock. There are small nurseries closing down, and depending on, I guess, the species people want, they might go, to other states to get. A lot of times we're going, I think, we do get a lot from New York, but a lot of the state facilities, at least in PA, have greenhouses that are underutilized, and that's awesome, great potential to start growing this plant material that could be used on public projects, like Erica, you could use on planting an emerald necklace project, grow that.
We're having that right now. One of the historic tree species, cucumber magnolia, can't get it. We have to go to Long Island for some of this stuff. So that's a great suggestion.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay.
Well, if there aren't any more questions, I want to again express our gratitude to Shay and to Gregory. Sorry that he's not still here, but thank you both for sharing. And I want to invite everyone to come back. We have 2 more days and 4 more sessions for this conference, and then following next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, we will be here at 3 o'clock next week, Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So I hope that you all will come back and join us then. Thanks to the Boston College for co-convening this. I'm representing the Yale School